Hello everyone, 24th episode of Road to Super Bowl Season 3, previewing 2025 season and reviewing 2024 is here. Today it's with Minnesota Vikings, and this team is a little bit depressing, and quite frankly it just fits Vikings in my opinion, because unfortunately their 2024 season was kind of framed by two tragic occasions. In the offseason, they've lost their rookie corner, Kyrie Jackson, due to an accident on the road, not by his fault as far as I'm concerned, but a drunk driver. And their season came to an end in the playoff against the Rams, who needed to move their game due to huge fires in LA. So unfortunately, their season was a bit like that, and despite a record of 14-3, they were not even able to get a home playoff game, which is kind of insane. I don't think that ever happened. So that's how I got up with this team. I still want to remind everyone the tragic situation of Kyrie and his family. Unfortunately, came in the days where Johnny Goodrow has died as well, and it was really bad time for young athletes across the sea from me. So Kyrie and your family, I hope you were able to deal with your pain wherever Kyrie is. I'm not assuming any religion here. Hope he is in a best place, and you can go with your life with memory of a great person and great player. With that being said, let's go and review Vikings as we would usually do, and we will start with how they've managed to do in 2024 draft. So we start with Dallas Turner, and he was a player that I ranked very highly, but I did not necessarily view him as a missing piece for this team for 2024 season, because they kind of had their edges, Andrew Van Jonathan Grenard. So the idea of Dallas Turner being kind of a full-time starter was always a reach for first season. As you can see, he kind of was not playing full-time, but it's not something that should absolutely distract you or discourage you. And to be fair, when he was up there, I think he was showing kind of what you expect from Dallas. So not a huge first year for him, never to be expected. Year 2 and forward, I feel like they will lean heavily into him. And with that, this pretty much ends players that have actually played for the Vikings from this draft. So we can see JJ McCarthy went down with injury before the season. Kyrie, we unfortunately talk about circumstances and him not being able to play anymore. And Will Reichert, okay, yeah, that was a guy that obviously played. He is a kicker, not a punter, and he was a damn good one. So yeah, we can say, okay, that was another rookie that made an impact. But like I said, in this series, I'm really staying away from ranking kickers and punters because that's not my forte. So I can only say, okay, they got another player from this draft. Beside that, Walter Rouse, Michael Jurgens, Ravi Drake, combined, they played around 100 and something-ish snaps. So really no rookie impact to be talked whatsoever. Circumstances were bad, but that's kind of how the Vikings rookie class went. Obviously, with JJ McCarthy, he's expected to be a starter for season 2 due to Sam Darnold booming in week 18 and in first round of playoffs, where from a guy that was 14-2 was I would say at some point even in conversation for MVP, definitely was up there. Definitely again for comeback player of the year, for really securing huge contract and really putting Vikings into a situation in which, how do you let this guy go? Well, last 2 weeks unfortunately showed you why. And let's talk about Sam Darnold, because he's going to be passing the torch to JJ McCarthy. As the time of this recording, Sam is officially out of Vikings and signed with my Seahawks. How I feel about that? Well, you will find out in post-free agency episode that will cover all the divisions combined. I will talk about additions from free agency, how that impacts drafts for each every single team. You should expect this series to be coming out early April, so we will have it all before the draft. I expect this series to finish at the end of the March, and I will not leave you out hanging for fresh content from me. You will see another one just at the start of the April. So I will talk a lot about Sam Darnold and how I view this whole season from the Seahawks side, but from every other team as well. So I'm not here to talk about how Sam Darnold is going to impact Seahawks. I'm going to talk about how Sam did in 2024. And it was great, like good starter. He did not play like a good starter. He played like a better player than that. But, well, it was kind of, again, first time that he was able to show this level of performance, at least for a huge stretch of regular season. But unfortunately for him and for the Vikings, in 2 games that was kind of their season, Week 18 against the Lions, where it was about first place in the conference, having home advantage for the whole playoffs, he was back to Sam Darnold, who sees the ghosts. And unfortunately, it did not improve against the Rams in the offseason. So this is something that is going to hang over him whenever he goes, in Seattle too. And I would say it cost him a shit ton of, okay, I can't say shit ton of money. Yeah. Because right now, for whatever it's worth, you are getting a QB that had one really great year under Kevin O'Connell with Justin Jefferson and all of the other guys that they have here, Christian Durso, Brian O'Neill, Jordan Addison. We'll talk about them. So, like, offensively, this is very well set up, and that's why I always thought that Sam would work to some degree with the Vikings, not actually to this degree. Felt like this was a really nice season for him, but this is with really good circumstances for Sam Darnold. Can he repeat that going forward, or is he going to be back to his former self? And even if he repeats that in regular season, when really push comes to shove, can you trust Sam Darnold? Because so far the answer, truth, would be no. But overall, a huge season for Sam. He earned himself a starting job, rightfully so, and we will see how the future is going to go for him. He's still only, I believe, 28, so like he is really freaking young, given how long he's been in the league. Now let's shift towards what kind of players he had to work with. And we start with running backs, and the conversation about Aaron Jones is not an easy one, because Aaron, to me, is really great running back. The problem with him is, I feel like you can see on him the amount of miles he's run in the NFL. His body was never the one that was, let's say, perfectly equipped to handle super heavy workload. And I feel like Vikings mismanaged him a little bit, because to me, at this stage of his career, he is not the guy that you can give a full workload to and expect him to last the whole season. I don't think he's ever been able to do it, and expecting him to be able to do that at this stage of his career was a bit of a, I don't want to call it lunacy. It might also be like they never expected themselves to be in a position, well, you actually need Aaron Jones in January, so it was kind of understandable why they like really put a heavy load on him even early in the season. But it was kind of clear that first half was much better for Aaron than the second half, and I feel like, because well, we can say it now, he's going to be back. I hope that he will be managed better. What I mean by better, well, I will talk about it in free agency episode, but just to give you a hint, I would really not put too much on his plate, like first 10 weeks. Let's give him 10 carries, 5 catches, just having him as the like 60-40 or 40-60 from his point of view, split type of back, and really up the workload towards the playoffs, towards the games that really, really freaking matter. They brought back Cam Akers during the season. He was solid for them. Not necessarily a guy that gives you anything huge, but they were not happy with what Ty Chandler provided them behind Aaron Jones, and he was kind of the reason why you were super hesitant to offload some of the workload for Aaron Jones, because he was not playing well. So that's why they brought back Cam Akers for cheap towards the end of the season, and I do expect them to really look at probably not necessarily free agency market post Aaron Jones, whom I did not actually expect it to be back, and he is, but we'll talk about it later. But really think about this running back class and really bring the running back of the future. Now Aaron is already 31 or going to be 31 this season, and yeah, I do very, very much doubt that he's going to be able to play till 35. He's obviously great mentor, great guy towards the locker room. So they were all gutted in Green Bay when Aaron Jones left or when they cut him. So I do understand why you want to bring him back, especially when you are handing the torch towards JJ McCarthy. Having as much as you can in terms of veteran leadership, as well as great players on the field, obviously helps. So that's with Aaron Jones. I do have some criticisms about the signing, but unfortunately for you, you will have to wait for that a little bit longer. Now, let's take a look at these wide receivers. And what to say about Justin Jefferson? To me, he is the best wide receiver in the league. I would understand the talk that it's top 3, whether you put Jamar Chase there, AJ Brown, I understand that. But to me, JJ would be just a hint above both these guys. But I absolutely understand the conversation. Justin is just exceptional. He is the perfect weapon. He can do it all. And he is definitely a primary reason why you do trust JJ McCarthy to be solid even in it's not going to be his rookie season, but his year 2. And the deal that he got reflected that, because he kind of got not top quarterback money, but definitely great QB money. 4 years, 140 million, absolutely deserved. And I had, with him, I have no problem with that signing. Jordan Addison, when I usually talk about for 99.9% of the guys I'm rooting for, with Jordan, I was kind of in that 0.1% in the offseason, because he's been caught for drunken drive. All this time, he overslept behind the wheels drunk. It was not his first time that this happened, and it happened just a couple of days after Kyrie died because of someone who was driving drunk. So that felt to me such a shitty thing to do. I do understand it's very, very tough to fight your own demons, but boy, don't do this, especially you should never do it, obviously, but a couple days ago, young man, kind of in your age, in your own team. I know you probably never met him because it was the start of the offseason, but dude, he died because of very similar thing what you are doing right now. For what is worth, it seems like he realized that during the process, and that's why he stopped the vehicle and fell asleep. He realized that he just is not fit to drive. So I haven't heard anything about his situations off the field during the season. So hopefully he'll learn his lesson for third time. And could be a guy that I can start to root for again. For me, I just need a little bit of time for this to happen, because to me, that just was such a shit thing to do, especially in those circumstances. It's always bad for second time, third time to do it, but especially in those circumstances, it just sucked. Let's go back to Jordan Addison off the field. He definitely is great compliment to Justin Jefferson. He really develops as a wide receiver. In year 2, I feel like he showed you 90 to 95% of what you hoped for. And they definitely have a duo that is going to scare the shit out of a lot of teams. And they don't really have too much behind it. Jalen Naylor, solid season, but like in normal teams, like he is wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 at some teams. But here, this is not necessarily a normal team because you have Aaron Jones, who is really good receiving back. You obviously have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Harrison. And we will talk about having two really great tight ends in TJ Hawkinson and Josh Oliver. So in that situation, you absolutely can go by with like not really having great wide receiver 3 because well you already have 5 targets to distribute the ball to, and pretty much anytime you are taking a target from Justin Jefferson or Jordan Harrison or TJ Hawkinson and giving it to someone like Jalen Naylor, it's a lower quality target. Obviously, he's going to be open much more because defenses will focus on Justin. That's why you definitely need someone to be out there. But you don't necessarily like need to look at this room and feel like, oh my God, they actually have wide receiver 3 problem. They don't. They could have a huge problem in a situation in which JJ or Jordan would go down. That would be a problem. But for as they are constructed right now, they definitely can work with Jalen Naylor as their wide receiver 3. And for what it's worth, he had a solid season. He's going to be entering his contract year, and we will see whether like he can carve himself up a better and bigger role. In terms of other guys, like I said, they are kind of there to be there just in case someone goes down. Just, you can use them as chess pieces in certain situations, but they are not really guys that you count on. So I do really expect them not to invest in this room heavily. And so guys, and just continue with this approach. They can do that because of this tight end room. TJ Hawkinson, there was a question mark about how he's going to re-enter the league after I think it was an ACL tear that he suffered later in 2023 season. He missed a couple of games, but he was back. Was he back at his top self? I would say 95% of it, and that's pretty good tight end, and I have like no doubt in my mind that he should be absolutely 100% up and running for next year. And in Josh Oliver, they found a guy that he has 6 years under himself in the NFL. Let me just double check on this. Oh, 50 years, 5 years. And first 2 years he really didn't get much of a playing time. When he played, it wasn't good, but he was highly drafted player, 3rd round, and when he finally got his chance, he definitely grabbed it and just absolutely looks apart. He's probably a guy that not really many fans know about, understand about, but he's just a perfect player for this team, and a guy that next year he could get a pretty solid contract that you would not expect. He's going to be a free agent, and I think he's going to be pretty pricey to bring back in if he continues to play like that, because DJ is much more of that, let's say, Brock Bowers type of a tight end, obviously, in terms of like he plays much more of a slide wide receiver. He's not like that great of a blocker, though he's not awful. He's not Jimmy Graham, for guys who remember Jimmy Graham. But Josh Oliver definitely fits this role as like the proper tight end that can block much better, but is not as dangerous in terms of catching the ball. When you mash these two guys together, this is one of the funniest and best tight end room in the league. And Johnny Mount is kind of like very good free for what they need from him, because he can do a little bit of both, neither on the level of these two guys. So they do have Hawkinson and Oliver for 1 more year. And like for JJ McCarthy, this situation is really great to step in terms of weapons. It gets slightly, well, not slightly, it gets worse when we talk about the O-line, but not necessarily the whole line, because in terms of tackles, they have one of the, let's say it easy, top 5 tackles duo. I would absolutely say top 3 tackles duo. Christian Deriso unfortunately went down halfway through the season, or not even halfway. they needed to bring replacement. Cam Robinson was brought in. He was not a Christian Deriso. He struggled, but I don't think like his career is over by any stretch of imagination. Like really going into a new team next to bad guard play, new system, it was always a tough transition for Cam Robinson. So I think he's going to be a free agent that gets a solid amount of money. But back to Christian Deriso, there is really no bad words to say about him. Ever since he stepped into the league, he's been what was promised. He was let me double check on this. He was 23rd pick in the draft. I don't feel like he's at an elite level yet, but it's definitely within his reach, and absolutely a left tackle that, even in the situation that is in the league, this is at least top 10 guy. And like when I say at least, it seems like a top 10, just a top 10. It's like there are so many great left tackles, man. But Christian Deriso is definitely up there with the best of the best. And the fact that they've been able to lock him up for 4 years, 104 millions a year ago, as of right now, it seems like a freaking bargain, because the numbers that were coming in this free agency, they were ridiculous. Like Dan Moore, 4 years, 80 millions. Dan Moore is going to be paid 5 million less a year than Christian Deriso. Let that sink in. I know the cap went significantly higher, but boy oh boy, this is a freaking bargain for the Vikings. On the other side, experienced 29-year-old Brian O'Neill, the guy that I do not necessarily expect to reach an elite upside. And despite them having the same grade, Deriso is a better tackle. I think he is very close to elite, while Brian just made it to amazing. But boy oh boy, I think it's time to reward Brian O'Neill, because he rarely misses a game. He is a stud playing out there, and especially later in the year, you see Christian Deriso went down. The offensive line was kind of in shambles, because we will talk about the interior of this O-line was really not good. He was the only guy that was really stepping it up and trying to pull this together despite all of the problems next to him. So I felt like it's absolutely deserved to move him to an amazing starter. I feel like he absolutely deserves that. Again, I don't think he has what it takes to become an elite, but in terms of right tackles, he is easily top 10. Right tackles are actually because everybody was like, yeah, left tackle is more valuable. Yeah, it is, because usually it protects blind side of your QB. So there is less competition for right tackles, and Brian O'Neill definitely is in top 10, and I would even argue there could be a debate for top 5 for Brian O'Neill. So tackles, they are freaking great. Where JJ should expect problems is the interior of this offensive line, because Ed Ingram, he just hasn't panned out. Second round, 3 years ago, 3 years that he's been awful, given his pedigree, but I'm actually going to say awful, even in terms of if he was drafted in a 5th round, 6th round, it would be okay, it's bad, but at least we are not forced to play him because of his pedigree. With that, he has all the tools in the world. He is a big human being, but he just cannot figure it out. And they benched him during the season, absolutely rightfully so, because it was endangering Sam Darnold out there. And he's entering his final year of the rookie deal. I think he's going to be back. I don't feel like he's going to be starting. And if he wants some significant money next offseason, he better fucking figure it out. I'm sorry for the swear word. Garrett Bradbury is kind of your prototypical older center that you can do with, but you better have something at least on one side next to him that is really, really good, which was not the case. Midway through the season, they went with Dalton Reisner, who is a better guard than Ed Ingram, which I would like for this to be a compliment to Dalton, because it didn't sound that good, but he's a solid player. Again, similar to Bradbury, I would say even turn up slight a little bit. If he's your worst piece in terms of interior, you can do without the Reisner absolutely okay. If he in this situation was kind of the best, yeah, that's where you are running into troubles. They played Blake Brandel the whole season, and so far for Blake Brandel, who was drafted in the 6th round, like he carved himself up a solid role, but even the extension that he signed last offseason, 3 years, 9.5 million, kind of tells you, well, he is 7th or 8th man for our O-line, and he was playing the whole season. Like, I would say he was slightly better than Engram, but yeah, that was ugly. So that whole interior was abysmal. Like I said, like if one of these guys is your interior and you have 2 really good pieces or even like good pieces out there, you can live with that. If this is your whole interior offensive line, it's a recipe for disaster. So while Sam Darnold definitely was bad in the last 2 weeks, I'm not going to, just because I'm a Seahawks fan and he just moved to Seahawks, I'm like, coping towards the idea that Sam Darnold wasn't horrible. He was. But let's be fair, like his O-line was shit show later in the year. Overall, this whole offense is, I would say, still greatly set up for JJ McCarthy's success, and I feel like they clearly know what they need to address. And I think that we should expect at least 2 players being brought for the interior of this offensive line. And in some cases, if it was like trying to get Trey Smith from the Chiefs, or if they hit on some of the guys in this year's draft class, we can start to talk that this O-line could be a plus, not a minus for JJ, because tackles are freaking awesome. Now let's shift towards the defensive side of the ball. We already talked about edge players here, and Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard were both able to keep up and like not really let Dallas Turner sniff an opportunity, because they were freaking awesome. They kind of went this weird switch with Daniel Hunter signing towards Texans and Grenard signing here, not necessarily trade, but they kind of exchange edge in this area. With Grenard, they went younger, slightly cheaper, and I was not a huge fan of this transaction. It was much more of predicting that he is going to really be great, because he was good prior to this year, in my opinion. And he absolutely delivered. He had very similar stats to Daniel Hunter in the Texans, not to measure these guys. But you definitely do not look like you've lose in this trade. And it wasn't trade, like in this semi-weird free agency exchange. Neither did Texans, to be fair. But really good year from Jonathan Grenard. And right now his 4-year, $76 million contract actually looks like a very, very good deal for the Vikings. Now let's go towards Andrew Van Ginkel, and this dude, what a freaking fun player it is. He just freaking gets it. He is perfect fit for Brian Flores and his defense. He is totally heady player. Like, he doesn't have this crazy athletic tools, but he just is able to win with his brain. He's able to predict. Kind of, I wouldn't say like he reads the minds of the QB, but sometimes it looks like that. And after last year, where he absolutely skyrocketed, his market was still kind of weird because he was excellent for the Dolphins in 2023, but still they were able to tie him up for just 2 years, 20 million, which seemed at the time like a very, very small amount compared to how great he was in 2023. And dude just followed it up. This is one of the nicest deal you can find out there, because like his cap hit this year is going to be 12.4 million because they pushed some money down the line. But like, this dude is freaking awesome, and I feel like they will have so much fun with these 3 guys next season. this is going to be, everybody, if we are talking about Vikings, Justin Jefferson will be on everybody's mind. Then JJ McCarthy, how he's going to do, right? But the fact that this team will have these three guys in rotation, and I do expect Dallas Turner to push it up, boy oh boy, this should be very, very fun. And unfortunately for him, but great for the Vikings, Brian Flores is not an NFL head coach. How is that reality? I don't freaking understand. I mean, I do probably understand that there is still his ongoing suit with the Miami, but boy oh boy, how great this is for the Vikings, because they have a guy that absolutely should be an NFL head coach based on his qualities, and they have him as their defensive coordinator. So what a freaking great situation for the Vikings. And I'm really excited about this trio next season. Kind of similarly, here we have some guys that were backups. We will come back to them, but kind of similar to how they have offensive line, they kind of have their D line too. Because, well, let's be fair, their edge is very, very solid, and in case of O-line, really excellent. But their interior here, as well as for the O-line, it's bad, man. Like, this is a bunch of guys, like, they have their usefulness, but they are absolutely missing the dude. Someone that really demands some attention. And, like, here I would say, like, you are constantly leaking, it's not like a massive hole for your ship, but like you are constantly leaking something, because this trio was absolutely unable to stop the run, especially in the playoffs. It was like, yeah, we just run it down to the Vikings' throat, and yeah, deal with that. And not even delivering anything as pass rushers. Like, again, as individuals, they are like nice rotational players. I think you can live if Harrison Phillips is your second best D tackle, and you have really good edges, and you have really good D tackle number one. But if he's your best piece, and Jonathan Broward and Jerry Tillery are kind of all around him, that was a recipe for disaster. That, like, despite Brian Flores' schemes, there's really, like, if you feel about how you attack a team, like kind of running it down the middle, if you are like just like missing the mass, missing the body types to stop it, how do you scheme against that? Like, you cannot really put 10 players in the box and expect offensive coordinators to not take advantage from that. So that was kind of their Achilles heel, as well as Sam Darnold's poor performance that was spiraled by the offensive line, and they definitely need to address this. So interior and both for the O-line and the D-line is where the Vikings need to focus their attention. Now let's shift towards the backups. Ben Jones, Jihad Ward, neither of them are signed for next year. I don't think they are going to be like super expensive, but also not like a super cheap. And are they necessarily guys that you need to bring back? I feel like just let them test the market, and if things go sour for them, you bring them back on some cheap veteran contracts. If not, you just figure out the backups, whether it's your free agency or the draft. And especially for the edge group, like, you have your one, you have your two, like you have your 2A and 2B in Van Ginkel and Grenard, and you have kind of your 2C in Dallas Turner. So you are absolutely set there. Now let's shift towards linebackers, and boy oh boy, was it fun to watch Blake Cashman and Ivan Pace. Like, this duo combined is just a perfect match for each other and perfect for Brian Flores, because in Blake Cashman you have incredibly intelligent guy that doesn't have an insane physical tools, but he plays hard, he can do it all, he can figure it out all. He is the experienced one that really like meshes everything together, is able to understand what he needs to do. And then in Ivan Pace you have just this crazy athlete, crazy blitzer that cannot cover grass, but put him somewhere next to the ball, next to the QB, and it's going to be fun. And they had a lot of fun scheming Ivan Pace, and with Blake Cashman like being the secure situation next to him, you can absolutely afford it. So one of the best performing linebackers, though, they are missing. They don't have Frank Warner, but boy oh boy, was it fun to watch these two guys. I definitely would encourage you to listen. Jesus. Come on. To listen, Joe Gruden in his videos on YouTube, because he really gives you, like, if you are an NFL nerd like me, you will definitely enjoy his deep dive of how they are able to like totally scheme these guys up. Like, it's 15 minutes how he talks about that. It's pre some like Thursday night game, but like you can watch all the episodes that he has about Vikings. You will hear a lot about Brian Flores and these two guys specifically. So I definitely encourage you to watch that if you want to go in much more depth. Here there is unfortunately not the space to do it, because like we have around 40 or 30 slides to go through, and I cannot spend like 20 minutes on one, but definitely encourage you to watch that one. And if you are not a fan of John Gruden, or if you do not enjoy listening to someone but me, you better watch these guys on the field, whether it's next year or rewatch some games. It's been hell of fun. Like, I usually don't talk about linebackers too much because, you know, like there are these couple of special guys, and then there is like Control C, Control V, really just an average groups that are not like super fun to talk about, because, you know, it feels like nobody is actually like putting super high effort towards these groups in terms of money, in terms of development of these players. It's pretty much like, let's take a dart throw on someone with crazy athletic tools and hope he figures it out. It's not the case here. Like, obviously, with Ivan Pace, you will have a full package. His coverage is abysmal, but the X and O's and like A and B's of how they can navigate around that and unleash him because of presence of Blake Cashman, really fun. And you also need great safeties for this system, because usually, especially like Josh Metellus, can play like this semi-linebacker role. Just to give you context on Josh Metellus, he played at the box 512 times, 330 as a slot, 90 as a free safety. So yeah, one of the guys that really can do it all. I would say this is really exciting trio that the question is, can you afford to bring Cameron Bynum back? But even if not, Harrison Smith, I hope for the sake of Vikings fan and even for the sake of me as a fan of football, I hope he does not retire. I hope he play at least one more year. Like, is he still comparable to where he was at his peak? No, like he is not. Like, he is slower, you can see that. But is he still a good, valuable player? Not only a locker room presence, but actually a guy that can give you some of the edges on the field? Hell yeah. Next to him, Josh Metellus, I would say that they will probably look at draft or the free agency and try to bring a third cheap piece, because I don't think Cameron Bynum is going to be cheap to retain. So they are not necessarily in super cap situations for them. But I do trust Brian Flores to kind of handpick himself a safety that will be potentially successor to Harrison Smith, as well as a guy that's going to function exceptionally well within this trio. And the fun does not necessarily stop there, because their whole secondary, I think, is, or at least was, compounded with really nice players. Shaq Griffin, former Seahawk, I am really fond of him. Is he upper echelon of good starters? No. I would say he is a functional player for you, not necessarily a guy that you expect to cover the best of the best wide receivers, but definitely a playable corner too. And that was kind of reflected that he was here on I think it was 1 year, 5 million or 4.5 million deal. Yeah, which like, that's not like super tiny amount of money. You know, the same you can say about Stephen Gilmore, 1 year, 7 million. So they were pretty much okay. We definitely need corners, especially with what unfortunately happened to Kyrie. They also lost Joanne Blackman, their standout rookie from the year prior. So they were like, okay, we are kind of super thin. They went with these two veterans that absolutely showed that they can still play. And they had Byron Murphy as a leading guy, one of the players that definitely earned himself a bag of nice money. I can give you guys an update of the situation because they were able to secure him back for 3 years, 54 millions. It was, to me, kind of clear that they need to bring him back because, well, both Gilmore and Griffin were here on 1 year deal, not necessarily a certain thing that you can bring them back. And he was a guy that was special in the system, and you just needed him back. So 3 years, 54 millions. Just a heads up, that's a solid deal for both Vikings and Byron Murphy. Hello, cat. Yeah, you want to tell them something? No? Okay. Sorry, guys. She's shy to talk to the camera yet. She's just a disturbance at this point. She likes to be a disturbance. You know that. Okay, that was the secondary. It was very fun. They had kind of, I would say, luck in terms of neither of these guys like went down, though they had obviously huge unluck or like misery before the season started. They didn't really have that much of a depth behind these guys, so the fact that Myron and Stephon and Shaq was able to stay reasonably healthy with all the safeties being able to stay healthy was huge for them. Now let's hand out some rewards, shall we? So drafted Dallas Turner. I mean, you know, like he was, I guess you could say Will Reichert, but with me really staying away from kickers and punters, I didn't like thought about that, or like I was like, okay, I'm not going to pretend before you guys that I'm just like this great guru. You know, I'm not. I've tried it last year. I've tried to check some of the data, look at the guys, but I'm like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I can see they'll fill your percentage. Sometimes I can like look at the film and see, okay, he missed this kick, but it was not really his problem. But that's about that. I don't really feel like you can learn from me much more than you can learn from PFF, or at this point, even Madden ratings for kickers and punters would be like at least like comparably accurate to me. And in that case, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I don't feel like I am really great to judge them. So with that being said, it was pretty much a guy that played, the only guy that played, and I would say, you know, for some teams, I actually was not able to produce the draft punter. So in some cases, it might be where is there a draft hit. And I would definitely say that Dallas Turner, year one, you are absolutely not discouraged given the plan that you have for him. What is there for the future? I didn't push myself towards the draft punter here because, well, JJ went down with injury. We already talked about Kyrie, rest in peace. And with other guys, there was just really no expectations whatsoever beside Will Riker, and he definitely delivered. In terms of cornerstone of this franchise, well, how can you go for anyone else but Justin Jefferson? To me, the best wide receiver in the game. I'm willing to debate top 3. I'm not willing to push him past that. Like, he is just freaking insane. For you who have not watched series Receiver, I think it was on Netflix last year, where you could see Justin Jefferson even off the field, I heavily encourage you to do so. In terms of an unsung hero, I could have gone for Brian O'Neill. I could have gone for Andrew Van Ginkel. At the end of the day, I went for Jonathan Grenard. I feel like he slightly benefited from me slightly doubting this signing, because at the end of the day, I feel like they all 3 would deserve this award, because I don't think like neither of them is necessarily on the overall super big map of the NFL by like regular fans. But Jonathan was like put in tough situation, I would say, because he was handpicked by Brian Flores, which like it's good, but it's also like comes with a lot of pressure. He was supposed to be a leader, but they also drafted Dallas Turner to like, okay, like it's not like we are. I would say like we definitely trust you, but we also feel like we need some more help in this spot. And he absolutely delivered. And I would say like he played towards the same degree as Dallas Hunter for the Texans, and that's a really high praise. Yeah, troublemaker is making trouble. Now, in terms of the flop, I went for Andy Ingram. The expectations was he can figure it out. There were some flashes the year prior that, perhaps he can be an NFL guard for years to come. And as of right now, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. He was benched and he's just hanging on towards a good backup. And given his draft pedigree, late second round, he's definitely a guy that they probably have to take as a draft bust for them. Now let's take a look at the state of this franchise. Kevin O'Connell, to me, is one of the best head coaches out there. For me, giving him an A+, he's missing more playoff success or any. But overall, they are just special here. And like fast forward towards the strength of this team, I actually will say it's coaches. To me, duo of Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores is easily top 3 in the league. Like, totally stoked about this duo, and Vikings fans, you cherish that because Brian Flores should have not been the defensive coordinator for 2 years at least by now. It's crazy, frankly. In terms of 2024, it might seem super harsh to give them B- when they were 14-3, right? But why there is a B- to me is, well, Sam Darnold was good, but like he was not good enough for you to really extend him. So while you like benefited for this season, it's not like you've put like some great things you can build upon with him. And with JJ McCarthy, he was not able to play a single snap. So you are still absolutely not sure what JJ is going to be. Also, with other rookies, you were limited with the amount of them, but you didn't get any significant contributions from them. And also, it's like you went towards this year with, I would say, like a lot of veterans that were able to deliver, which is great, but they are not necessarily the future of this team. And with a bunch of young players that did not necessarily deliver. As much as I'm not concerned with Dustin, he only played 300 snaps. Julian Blackman was unable to play. Ed Ingram appears to be bust. Tyson Chandler was not really like delivering anything. Jordan Addison like developed, but there could be something more in there. So like, I know B- seems harsh, but like at the end of the day, you were one and done in the playoffs. You effed it up when it matters. And it was kind of low-key good chance for you to make something happen. And a little bit of this reminds me a couple of years ago, and then being like one and done with Kirk Cousins in the playoff. Like, you want to look, you think you should be feeling much better about that season, but when you look at it and like from the bigger picture, like, okay, but success was actually not there. Like, one and done is not a success. And do you feel great about this franchise going forward based on this year? Like, similarly, like, how would you think about Chargers? Because like they were brought there by a lot of great young players. Like, a huge part of the success was Sam Darnold. He's not going to be there. So yeah, that's kind of where I like went a little bit harsh. Still, definitely above expectations. It could have been a B, let's be fair, but yeah. In terms of QB, it's a weird situation because at the end of the day, I feel like having JJ McCarthy sit for a year was always going to be a plan. So the fact that he was injured, while it sucks, it's not necessarily an injury that should like derail his career. So he was always sitting behind Sam Darnold, especially Sam Darnold, the way that he played. And I have quite a high expectation. He's obviously not a proven quantity, but at least you have a guy that was handpicked by Kevin O'Connell, and you obviously won't pay him for next 4 years, or like won't pay him top money. So here it's not just about the quality of QB, but how much you're paying for the guy. And yeah, you could definitely argue it should be 2 minuses. I feel like Kevin O'Connell's trust in this guy definitely puts me over the edge and just shifts it towards 1 minus. In terms of hot seat for Kevin O'Connell, it's 1. Like, I know, like, some of the Vikings fans were like calling for him, and I'm like, what? You should cherish Kevin O'Connell, and yeah, he's just freaking good. In terms of finances, the situation is like worse than like sheer cap space would suggest, because they went with a lot of cap space. They have their biggest stars really tied up, but they don't necessarily have so many great young players on rookie deals that are value at this point. They also have some of the cap hit situations like figure out for 2025, but in a way that, like, let's say Justin has 20 million cap hit this year or 15, and then 40 next season. So it's like you are not like adding void years in this as of now, but you are essentially pushing the can down the line. So it could have looked better when you just like look at the money and like having a lot of players tied up, but it's actually just a good situation for them. We're talking about strength of this team. In terms of division, from the point of Vikings, given the, I would say, injury situation with the Packers, I like what the Bears are doing, but do I trust that the Bears are not going to be Bears? So like, I think about them as like slightly under average in terms of Packers, and juggernaut in terms of Lions. So that kind of resulted between 1 minus and 2 minuses. Like, it's not like, it could be a really bad situation if Chicago really ascends to what we think is the potential of them, but it's still the Bears. And Packers, like, I know it might seem harsh, but their season was actually, with the amount of like injuries and like not necessarily the biggest development of Jordan Love, I don't feel better about Packers after this year than I felt last season. So yeah, it's still like very tough situation, but I don't think it's necessarily as bad as perhaps like the results would suggest. With that being said, let's take a look at how they can shape up for 2025. Hey, troublemaker. So this is their offense. I definitely feel like JJ McCarthy is going to be handed the reins. I feel like from the interior line perspective, the only guy that I would believe is going to be playing is Garrett Bradbury. And because, like, well, I would say that he is next to the horizon, like the most solid one that was playing last year, and he's under contract. So whether they will try to shift him towards a guard and try to sign a center, or they will stick him and will go for guards, I think he's going to be one player that is going to play. Next to him, I just don't know what their guard situation is going to be. Obviously, as I'm filming this, they have signed Ryan Kelly, so that kind of means that Garrett Bradbury is either going to start on the bench, going to be cut, or shift towards the guard. We will see about that situation. But their tackles, as we know, are absolutely figured out. In terms of playmakers, you can clearly say I am not cheating this. I have not added Aaron Jones into this picture, despite him being resigned. I actually thought that they will go like similar to the Chargers. Let's just reset this position for us. Let's use this draft that is great and reset this position for us. They are in like one of the reasons why that might have been a wrong way to look at it. I don't think that they necessarily have that many drafts. Yeah, they only have 4 draft picks. So, I mean, you can obviously trade down from the situations, but unlike Chargers, they are not going to be able to like fill this situation with two young running backs just with the draft, because then they would not be able to address anything else. In terms of other guys, I think you can even put Jalen Nailor into this picture as a wide receiver 3. They might go for someone slightly better or with more upside, just in case Jordan Addison or JJ goes down. But with Josh Oliver and TJ Hawkinson, I don't think you worry about this room at all. Now let's shift towards backups. I think Ed Ingram and Blake Brandel are still like very cheap. You don't want them to be playing. I guess you want Ed Ingram to be playing, but not as good as he was last season. But as a cheap, reasonably cheap backups, like Blake Brandel is 4 million, Ed Ingram is 3.6 million. You can live with them as your like O-line 6-7 and depth like that. With Jalen Nailor, we already talked about. I'm not necessarily sure like how they will go about their backup QB, whether they will try to sign someone who, like in case JJ is not necessarily working, they can do like similar to like Joe Flacco or and Anthony Richardson, or if they go much more of the approach, let's just bring a cheap guy here, because like these veteran backups are slightly more costly, and really just not put any nerve on JJ McCarthy and like really hand this room to him. So we'll see about that one. In terms of defense, like I said, their money situation is not as great as they could be able to sign two top defensive tackles in this year. I feel like they will address the situation in the draft, but again, they don't necessarily have that many draft picks. So for the start of the season, I do expect them to go with Harrison Phillips and try to bring top guy next to him. Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Greenard is going to be your starting edges, and Ivan Pace and Blake Cashman definitely starting LBs. In terms of secondary, I really do expect them to bring Byron Murphy back, and they did. I hope Harrison Smith is not going to retire. From as of right now, it doesn't seem so. They will have Mekhi Blackman back, and like I put Stephon Gilmore here because I really feel like he should be like a veteran signing that it should be like mutually beneficial for him, because I feel like Brian Flores is a great defensive coordinator that can really highlight his strengths at this age and limit his weaknesses, and he should be able to feel really good in this system. Like it should be a position for him that for reasonable 1 year, 6 million type of deal, he should be back. They should want him back, and that would be that. So they would still be missing like one corner because the depth is not necessarily here. And like low-key, they kind of have some depth problem. They maybe turn to like Jay Ward, their fourth round pick 2 years ago, who so far played very, very minimal amount of snaps. So I don't think he absolutely should be on this board. And as of this recording, I'm not really feeling super great even to put him as a guy that I trust to be a backup. Here, I was only able to go for Dallas Turner, who is clearly a guy that they will put in the game a lot. And I'm very, very excited about their defensive line for next year. So that was your Vikings. It might seem like I was a little bit more harsh on them than their record would suggest, but yeah, I don't necessarily feel like, despite how good that year looked, I don't think like Vikings as a franchise necessarily like moved the needle for me to feel better about them for like next year. So I like their coaching staff like ton. Like I think there's a lot of solid pieces, and I really like the fact that they were able to be like, okay, we are not going where we want to go with Kirk Cousins, so let's go and really flip a coin on a young quarterback with JJ McCarthy, and like go for the upside, and also in doing so we can really build this team into a situation that it's a very nice situation for JJ McCarthy to enter. Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkins, Christian Darris, Brian O'Neill, because we have the money to do so. We don't pay our QB as of right now $50 million. So I'm like super happy with those decision makings. Like I'm super happy with a lot of things they have done, yet I kind of don't feel great about them. Sorry, Vikings fans. Let me know now if you feel the same way or if I'm just stupid for some reason. Thank you very much for listening. Please leave a like, leave a comment, and see you with the next one. Bye bye.